have a question. What is your favorite song and how do you connect with it? Is it when you fell in love or through something really difficult? I'm your host, Tiffany Mason. Now join me as I interview others and we take a walk down memory lane with them. Let's get lost in why that music matters to them. Turn up your radio and let's explore Memories with a Beat. Hello, Podcast Land. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Memories with a Beat. And today I have with me Fred Rutman, and this is a diamond in the rough, y'all. So I'm really excited. Fred had an idea that he wanted to review a few artists and then give some information about those songs and how they impacted his life or his thoughts and emotions connected with those. So I'm really excited. Fred, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to Memories with a Beat.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So let's dive into it. Let my audience know just a little bit about yourself, where you are, what you do, and maybe why you have this extensive music knowledge.
Okay. I'm coming to you from Toronto, Canada, and I'm on a medical leave. I was a college professor, so I taught anything in the business cycle, marketing, finance, corporate communications, statistics, all sorts of things. And then I had a medical adventure that started in 2009. That's led to me being pretty unique in the medical world, and I'm writing a book about it called The Summer I Died 20 Times.
Okay. So you were a college professor for how many years?
10-ish.
Okay.
10-ish years.
So now that you have some time to yourself, is there anything that you do in your free time? Any hobbies that you've taken up?
Well, mostly trying to write this book and learning about how to get a book written and published. And
yeah, it's interesting, right?
Yeah, like it's an entire new career. And, there's so many ways, and you find out about how some industries have the ability to move forward and some are just so stuck in their ways. And I feel a little bit like the publishing industry and the way they filter to get content. The traditional publishers are a little behind the times.
Good luck on that path for sure, Fred.
Thank you.
Well, hey, let's dive into your songs. I'm dying to know what you're going to share with us. So you can really just take it away, what you had for a vision and running down these 5 artists and what you want to cover with each one of them. I'm so excited, so intrigued.
Okay. So the genesis of this idea just happened after we talked initially, and it just happened in my feed. I just happened to have like 8, 10, 12 female artists from that classic rock era, just all in a row. And it seemed to me, this might be an interesting topic to delve into. And it was almost an avoidance tactic on my part because I'm horrible at choosing favorites. I don't have a favorite TV show. I don't have a favorite book. And, I've got some favorite artists in general, but then when you drill down to, like, I can't tell you what my favorite Zeppelin song or Beatles song is. Yeah. So I just thought I would go with the ladies and give them, some due.
Okay.
So, and I filtered it down sort of to a genre of the women who were trailblazers and were the fronts of their bands.
Okay.
Because most of them seem to be solo artists. So I started with, I'll give you a teaser. The first album I ever bought was Fleetwood Mac Rumors.
That was a good one.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's the Trailblazers. There's like Susie Q, who was like the first rock front of her band. And I don't know a lot of her music, but I just happened to see an interview with her and they talked about that. She was an Elvis disciple. And actually she saw Elvis, I think, on the Sullivan Show. Okay. And she was like maybe 6 or something and said, oh my God, that's what I want to be.
So cool that she was inspired by that.
Yeah. And then when she started up her band, somehow Elvis heard this story and reached out to her.
No way.
Yeah. So,
That's super cool.
Yeah. You don't get much more serendipitous than that.
Very cool. And especially in that time, because there wasn't the communication that we have now. It's not like she was inspired and posted a picture on social media and one of his agents saw it and thought it would be a good publicity thing to reach out to her. It was
Mhm.
like back in the day where like he actually found out and he was sincerely interested enough to reach out to her.
Mhm. I remember David Letterman interviewing the guys from Led Zeppelin,
Mm,
and he said, "Are you fans or pals with all the other great buddies or bands and stuff?" Like, well, no, not really. Like, we don't phone them, and we might run into them in the airport
yeah.
or in a hotel, but that's about it for the most part.
Yeah.
It was after their bands broke up and they would get chances to collaborate with each other. That's when they really got to know each other.
Sure.
So
Mm-hmm.
a whole different era.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So I want to go from Susie Q to Tina Turner,
Okay.
who
Can we back
did
up really quick? Is there a
sure.
song that you would pick of Susie Q's?
No, I'm
Okay.
just going on her body of work, and that she's like 73, 74, and she's still out on tour.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to look her up.
Okay. Her real name is Susie Quattro.
Okay.
So Tina Turner, again, there's too many of her songs that were really good.
Amen.
And she's just, you know, not the greatest voice, good voice, but not the greatest voice.
Mhm.
But boy, can she put on a live show, like just
Right.
mind blowing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, she
if
owns
you,
that stage.
yeah, much like Mick Jagger, just the
Mm-hmm.
energy and the like across the stage and up the, everywhere. And I mean, the last performance I saw her, she was like 69 and still like that amount of energy and fitness and didn't miss a beat. It was just crazy. So
Yeah.
she's got to be up there, even though she didn't officially have a band. She
Yeah.
was,
She had some backup singers.
yeah.
And
So
she's
she's
iconic just in general, just because of the whole Tina and Ike story and how many
yes,
times it's been turned into a movie and covered. And so she has a lot of popularity and awareness. The other thing, speaking about her concerts and the energy that she brings, on American Idol, they're always like, you have to fill the entire space of the stage, right? When
yeah.
they're developing the talents and stuff. And that's exactly what she did. She would command that full
Hmm.
stage.
And I don't think anybody had to teach her that. I think she was just
Right.
that way instinctually.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep. I agree.
okay. And I want to go to my next level, and these are superstars of rock. And to me, they could almost have done each other's music. They all had their own presence. They all had their own bands. But so I'm talking about Pat Benatar and Chrissie Hynde and Debbie Harry. They were all in same era, and they could have just switched up. They could have traded bands and been successful. They were that good.
Mm,
And their writing styles were similar. They could go hard rock, they could go poppy, they could go all over the place. And
mm-hmm.
very, very interesting ladies that blazed a trail fronting bands that wasn't very common back then. So
Do you have a favorite of those three?
um
Or have you
probably
seen any of them in concert?
I haven't, but probably Debbie Harry, just because she just seems to exude a level of coolness
Uh-huh.
that you don't really see. It was like, if you were in a room of 100 people, there would be 99 of them just around her. Just
Mm.
she would just attract those people because she's just got that energy and vibe that comes off her that everybody wants a piece of.
I would say the same thing about like Madonna, right? Like just a whole new level of cool that you just
Mm-hmm.
can't, the ordinary everyday person can't achieve that
Yeah.
level. And people are like born with that. I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
that's just because her outfit was so great. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's just innate. That's just in you when you're that
Yeah.
cool.
She knew what she had to do to make herself stand out from the crowd. Same with Gaga. So my next on the list is Bonnie Tyler. And for a specific song, I think you just have to talk about Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Mm.
And that song goes all over the place. It's such a roller coaster of emotion. And she goes from sultry, smooth, silky in her voice to like raunchy to downright gritty and back again. and then does it again and again. And if you listen to the lyrics carefully, it almost sounds like a Meatloaf kind of lyrics. It's like a theatrical production. It's just an
Okay.
amazing, amazing song.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I can see where you're going with that for sure. And it's a song that's really standed the test of time. You know,
Mhm.
like, I mean, every generation still loves it.
Yeah. If you ever watch reaction videos, and every so often I'll see one in my YouTube feed, and it's a young black couple who might be 25,
Uh-huh.
and they'll see this Bonnie Tyler video, and they're just like, and you watch them try to contextualize it, and like, what's this about? And, was this a song in a movie, or all sorts of things like that. And it's really entertaining from that perspective, but it makes you look at the song again and
Sure.
re-examine it. And that's what happened with Total Eclipse of the Heart for me. And then I just, Meatloaf recently passed, and I just said, like, this would actually, I checked to see if Meatloaf had written this song for her. And he hadn't, but it was a very Meatloafy song.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Absolutely. Theatrical, I think, is the best way to put it. I was going to say it like mystical, but I think theatrical is a better word for it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this brings me to my number 2 female, which is Ann Wilson from Heart.
Yes.
So, I mean, they had a number of hits. Some people say Ann was the first real female leader of a band, her own band.
Not
And
Susie
others
Q.
say Susie Quattro was the first. So I
Hmm.
don't think it really matters, but I mean, Ann had such a effortless voice.
Mm.
And, for the Kennedy Center honors, when they gave Led Zeppelin their award, I don't know, 5-6 years ago or whatever it was, they picked her to sing Stairway to Heaven.
Oh, wow. What an honor.
Yeah. So when the other artists pick you,
Yes. That,
and
yes.
Robert Plant actually cried.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow,
So it's
that's an
actually
even
making me
bigger honor.
emotional.
Well, speaking of effortless voice, and I don't know why I keep going back to American Idol, but this is all making me think of, I guess, just things that they say when they are developing their talent. But that's one of the probably, I was going to say the most frustrating thing, but it is what makes me the most envious is when somebody sings effortlessly. And that is what I love. I love when someone sings and it just comes out of them. Like,
Mhm.
I'm so envious of that. I wish
Mhm.
that's just my biggest dream ever, is just to have this amazing voice,
I'm told I have a really good voice, but I don't know how to sing.
Okay.
I don't know how to do the breathing. I don't know how to control my voice, but my general voice is really appealing. I come from a very musical family. So my
Okay.
grandfather was a classically trained violinist. He was a concert violinist.
Mm.
And this is a little trivia. Back in the vaudeville days, he was the conductor of the symphony or the orchestra that played for all the vaudeville performers that came through town.
That's so cool.
So my mom says apparently they would come over to their house. My mom wasn't born yet, after their gigs. So all these people like the Marx Brothers and George Burns and all those other people for the era would like come over for a snack. My
Just hang
grandmother
out.
played piano, which I never knew till, she'd passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my sister married into a super musical family. They were almost like the Partridge Family of Canada. And except with the no TV gig, but
Okay.
super, super talented. And my brother-in-law, Dr. Jason Brown, he's a math professor, but he's a Beatles fan at another level. And he actually
Mm-hmm.
analyzes their music.
Oh,
So
cool.
I don't know if you know, there's that one chord that starts off A Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
So for decades, people have been trying to figure out what that is. And he, with being able to play multiple instruments and using a little bit of his math genius, he believes he has figured it out. And he's been featured in a whole bunch of magazines. And when they went up to George Martin and said, did you do it? Is this it? He said, I can't answer that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what does he analyze? The music itself? Is it the way that they develop the sound? What is he analyzing about their music?
All sorts of things, but there's often debates around Beatleologists or whatever they're called about who actually wrote what lyrics.
Okay.
Even inside a song, they're all credited to John and Paul, but like who actually wrote what?
Mm.
Did Paul write this stanza and then John wrote that, or that sort of thing? And then even within the music notes, he looks for what makes Beatles music so repeatable.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but almost every time that I listen to a Beatles song, especially now with better headphones, and you can I hear something in a Beatles song that I've never heard before. It's like almost a new experience every time. And it's starting to happen to me with Led Zeppelin and Supertramp and Rolling Stones. It's just there's a mathematical repetition. Music is very math based. The scales are mathematical oriented, and there's just certain things that your brain loves to process.
Well, it's interesting that he analyzes it and tries to figure it out. And then you're now saying that you hear a similarity within each band. I listened to this podcast called Rock and Roll Archaeology, and he talks about the evolution of, it's really supposed to be the evolution of what was going on currently that affected the songs that we got, that were made. Mm-hmm. And part of that is going through the Beatles. First of all, I did not realize how many Beatles songs I love. I didn't realize it was by them. I thought they all sounded like A Long Day's Night. Is that A Hard Day's Night? A Hard Day's Night,
yeah.
Yep. I thought that they all sounded like that. So then to come to find out, I'm like, oh, I like this song. And it's by the Beatles. But what they were saying is two different things, that they ended up finding that, music has a reverb to it, an echo to it. That's what makes it sound a little bit more full sometimes. And they were realizing how they could use the studio to echo their voices or to echo the instruments. So there was a whole thing going on where they had the equipment and then they had the studio, and how could they make the two of them come together to make a unique sound that neither one would make on their own. So it's possible that maybe you're hearing something to that extent. I don't know.
Yeah. Everybody's brain is different and processes differently. I'll send you a link. He does, as part of his professional work, a presentation called Math and Music. And he explains it more. And then he did an article in the Wall Street Journal, of all things. And he actually wrote his version of a Beatles song. And if you had only heard a few Beatles songs before, you could not tell that this was not a Beatles song.
Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe he has cracked the code finally. If you figured out that first note or the first tone, and now he maybe is moving on to getting more complex, where he can do the full song and, sound alike. So maybe he could make new music for all of us.
Maybe he'd love to.
Well, I will include that in the show notes for sure. So send me the link for the presentation. And then if you have the Wall Street Journal, we'll take that too. And I'll put that in the show notes, and just, because it's good musical knowledge in general for my audience. So I think that I think all you guys out there in podcast land would enjoy it. So we'll put that in there too. Yeah, very cool.
And if you're a corporation or a conference that wants to hire a very eloquent math genius who can also entertain you musically, like, it would be amazing if he got together with Brian May of Queen, the guitarist, who's also like a PhD in like interstellar physics or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They would have some amazing discussions.
Okay, so we're talking Ann Wilson.
Yeah.
From Heart. And was there more that you were going to share about Ann Wilson? I mean, we got on this whole rabbit hole because we were talking about her singing Stairway to Heaven. What an awesome honor. And then for the bandmates to break out in tears because of being so impressed and overwhelmed. That's pretty cool.
I think there's if I had my own podcast and I was interviewing comedians or musical artists, one of the questions I would always ask them, or I would want to ask them, is who would you pay to see?
Ah.
And I think, besides, things that can't happen, I'd like to see the Beatles play. If you asked a lot of the high-end artists who they would pay to see, she would be on the list.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, she definitely made her mark. She definitely put her mark in history as far as amazing music that she made for all of us.
And again, her and her sister are still touring.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
crazy.
And they're also in their 70s. I mean,
and
sometimes
a
you
passion,
lose that
though.
voice.
Yeah, right. Yes. Some people have definitely lost their voice. Yes.
And, I even know when Paul McCartney performs, he doesn't perform the same way he did 30 years ago. And that would be pretty unrealistic. But he knows, he's so talented that he knows how to make his limitations covered up. And
Sure.
It doesn't impact the quality of the song.
Right. Stays in his lane, knows his limitations. Yep. Yep.
I actually have to me, what was a really funny Paul McCartney thing from one of these reaction videos. And they were watching Live and Let Die.
Okay.
Which is, amazing. And then at the end of it, the woman said something like, "Who's this by again?" And the male said, "Paul McCartney and Wings." It's just like, oh, wasn't he like a Beatle or something?
Yep.
So that just cracked me up. So, yeah, amazingly talented people. So,
well,
of which I got none.
So, well, it sounds like you did. You just didn't focus on it, so you didn't develop it. You have it, but you just didn't focus on it. Now, I tried to focus on it, but I didn't have it, so I don't have it now.
Okay. Should we go to number 1?
Let's do it. Drum roll, please.
Okay. So I mentioned before that the first album I ever bought was Rumors, Fleetwood Mac Rumors, which amazing album. And,
yes, sir.
And of course, the real lead singer of that band was Stevie Nicks.
Yes, sir.
So, she's got it all. She's got like that witchy, mystical persona. She could have, been maybe she is a real life witch. I don't know, and she's got the crazy flowing dresses, and she's always trying to make it look like she's flying and things like that. And her dancing style is so funny. I don't know if you've ever seen Joe Cocker.
I guess not. No.
He covered a Beatles tune, "Get By With a Little Help From My Friends." And when he moves, it's like he's having an epileptic seizure. And it's just the funniest thing to watch. And Stevie Nicks is not far behind him in having like the most cringy dance moves on stage. So
that's another American Idol thing where they will analyze these people and they'll be like, you are doing something super weird, so you need to watch yourself to get rid of that habit. So sounds like Joe Cocker and Stevie Nicks could have used that advice. Yeah,
but I think when you can sing and write like Stevie, people give you a little bit of a break. Plus, the woman was gorgeous. I mean, she's in her early 70s now, and I think she could easily pass for in her 40s. She's got all those good genes that the rest of us don't get.
She was the full package.
Yes. So the song I picked from her was "Edge of 17," which interestingly, it didn't make top 10 when she released it as a solo artist, but somebody covered it on TikTok.
Okay.
I think while they were skateboarding like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And it climbed the charts again, and it made it into the top 10. And then other artists, I saw a few of them, but I can't remember their names. Like legit artists started skateboarding and covering this. It's just one
Oh,
of these
too
phenoms.
funny.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. So they're skateboarding and singing the song?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything goes on
Multi-talented.
TikTok.
That's right. That's right. Social media is definitely entertaining.
Hmm. So besides being a long-term fan, I also like songs that have an obvious background.
Mm-hmm.
And this song has to me, a very interesting background or backstory. Stevie Nicks has become friends with a 25, 26-year-old journalist from Chicago. And
Okay.
they communicate on a regular basis and publish their interviews. So some of this is what I've learned from a couple of those interviews, and some of it's just rock legend or urban myth. So
Okay.
you decide for yourself. So
Okay.
the original title of this song was supposed to be Age of 17, not Edge of 17.
Ah, okay.
And Stevie Nicks was very good friends with Tom Petty. And they also did a couple of collabs, Stop Dragging My Heart Around and songs
Okay.
of that nature. People used to gravitate to Tom Petty's house. So Stevie said she was there visiting one day, and she got the whole backstory of when Tom Petty and his first wife, her name might have been Jane, were dating and met when like they were 17.
Okay.
And she just liked this story so much, she's told the wife that she was going to make this into a song about them.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a very Stevie Nicks kind of thing to do.
Sure.
And so she's percolating it and goes home. And then that week, she had 2 deaths in her
Oh
life.
no.
I think the first one was an uncle named John that she was very close to.
Hmm.
And then somebody else named John that was in all our lives. So that was the week John Lennon was murdered,
Okay.
who she also knew.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of spun this song off into a different direction. And so that's part of it. So
Interesting.
mhm.
Interesting that they would just hang out. But I again, I have to think that that is because the social media aspect wasn't there. Just
Yeah.
like the bands were saying they wouldn't call each other up. Of course they wouldn't, but maybe they would all hang out together or they said they didn't, but I'm saying in this instance with Stevie Nicks and Tom Petty that they were maybe just hanging out, and also hanging out because someone of the same flavor, right? Someone with the
Yeah.
same popularity and the same issues and the same, I mean, I probably am just going to say first world problems,
Mhm.
but nonetheless, I mean, still something that, got to them and got under their skin and stuff. But yeah, really cool to think that they hung out and that's how that started. And then again, things happen in our life and it just affects how that turns out. So it came
Mhm.
out a little bit differently than she originally started, even
Mhm.
with starting with Age of 17 and then turning to Edge of 17. So
Yeah. And I think the agents of the bands collaborated a little more. Like I know in the early years, the Beatles actually wrote songs for the Rolling Stones to help
yep.
them get #1 hits, to help drive the industry. And I just saw a clip, Paul being interviewed by Ronnie Woods from the Rolling Stones. And Paul said he and Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys had a little bit of a rivalry. So the Beatles would put out something and then Wilson would try and top them.
Yep.
And I think the Beach Boys don't get nearly the recognition for their awesomeness that they really should. So back to this.
They're sending out good vibrations, right? So
Absolutely. Okay. So if we want to talk about the lyrics, I mean, I think the
yeah,
lyrics in this song
I kind of
are
do
just
want
amazing.
to. Yeah, I kind of do want
Okay.
to because I never paid attention to them. So maybe my audience didn't either.
Mhm.
So I would love to dig into the lyrics. Yep.
So the first thing I want to talk about is the opening lines of this song, which are one of those lyrics you thought were A for your entire life that turned out to be B.
Okay, yes.
So it starts off just like the white-winged dove, which I always thought was the one-winged dove. So I imagined it was a struggling bird that, flew in circles and stuff, but it's actually white winged.
I
And,
love that.
and then sings a song, sounds like she's singing, ooh, baby, ooh, say ooh. And I talked about the backstories before. This is part of how Stevie Nicks wrote or writes. She saw this as one of those, I don't think they're common anymore. Menus used to have like regional factoids on them.
Oh, okay.
In restaurants, they, just weird little things. So this white-winged dove that goes ooh, ooh, ooh was something on I think an airport menu in Phoenix or something.
Okay.
And she just thought that was such a weird thing. And she figured out a way to bring it into the song.
Oh, funny. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Way to go, yeah. Stevie.
And then, of course, she did have to put something about Tom Petty and his wife into. So I think that's the second stanza. And it's very lyrical to me. She's very poetic in her writing. And the days go by like a strand in the wind. In the web that is my own, I begin again. So, Tom and his wife broke up and had to start life again. And,
yeah,
it doesn't just affect them. It affects your whole inner circle. It's sort of like that Seinfeld episode, when your friends get divorced, who gets the friends?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, can I still be friends with them? And,
yeah.
Because I was friends with you first, but I really like your ex, even though you don't.
Yeah, even though you guys are parted.
Okay, so if I go down to the third stanza, which is just interesting lyrics to me, but I think this is about the two Johns.
Okay.
Her uncle and John Lennon. So it says, well, I went today, maybe I will go again tomorrow, which I think is a funny lyric. The music there, well, that was hauntingly familiar. Some of the Beatles and John Lennon's music was, just sticks with you. And
also I wonder, do you feel like maybe she visited the graves?
It's possible, or she was having some, deep memories of them and just feeling them. She seems like a really spiritual, ethereal person. So very sensitive and very empathetic, and so she's got a radar that I think most people don't have. So, well, I see you doing what I try to do for me. So, trying to figure out your life, and that's what John was doing at the end of his life. I don't know what the uncle was doing. With the words from a poet and the voice from a choir. I mean, the Beatles harmonized like almost no other.
Yeah.
So they were very choir-like in that way. And maybe, the Eagles were close to that level, great with their harmonies. And the Beach Boys were obviously great with their harmonies. But, you don't find that in a lot of bands.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of equipment that helps them now.
Yeah. I don't know. Was it American Idol or maybe America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent? And one of the judges told this guy who was singing, and he was horrible, that, you've just got an awful voice. Like, she was blunt. And the guy responded, well, I don't have auto-tune like you do.
Oh,
that was a serious burden. You really can't come back from that.
No, you're getting kicked off the show too. You're not on the show anymore. Yeah.
He wasn't going forward anyway, but
yeah. Now you're really not.
Yeah. So anyway, Simon thought that was pretty funny too.
Oh, I bet he did.
Okay, so the next stanza, I think, alludes to that she's a caretaker in her life, but life does go on. And I think there's a story, like, her friend was married and got sick and had a baby. And just after she had the baby, she died. So Stevie Nicks decided she was going to marry the widower and raise this child for her friend.
Oh, wow.
Of course, when you're a druggy rock star,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see that being a happy ending. And it was a pretty short collaboration. So, but it definitely speaks to her good intentions, but
Yeah.
the execution probably lacked a little planning and
Probably. Yeah.
So I really like these lyrics. So the clouds never expect it when it rains. Like clouds just are clouds. They don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And sort of like she didn't know what she was doing there. But the sea changes colors, but the sea never changes. It's always, you always are what you are. With very few exceptions where people make these massive transformations. So this stanza that we were just talking about, that the sea changes color, but the sea never changes, things look like they're changing, but they stay the same, ends with the first line of "on the edge of 17." And that's where the song changes title.
Interesting. So. Now, was Tom Petty married on the age of 17? Is that why?
Well, that's when he met his first wife.
Okay. I wondered.
So, and I think on the edge of 17 or the age of 17, people are in that transition zone, where you're going from child to adult. And it happens differently for all of us, of course, but it was obviously meaningful to her.
Yeah. And no, it's a great
she
song
recognized
for sure.
Something in herself. The last stanza that I want to talk about is, well, then suddenly there was no one left standing in the hall. And I think that's talking about the two Johns dying so back to back.
Yeah.
And I could be totally off on any of these, but that's just the way it reads to me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that insight. I've never really ruminated on the words, so fair interpretation, I think. And just that that, I mean, if you didn't know that, you would maybe think something differently, but because had that background information, it definitely impacts the song because it was out right around the same time as that happening. So it would make sense that she'd be referring to that in some respect, because that's kind of like that rock and roll archaeology that I was talking about, where he's talking about current events affecting the music that we ended up hearing. So yeah. I
think the most obvious example of that is when Neil Young wrote that protest song,
Ohio.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, it's in rock and roll archaeology as well.
Yeah. He grew up in my hometown of Winnipeg.
Oh, really? Okay. Very cool. Did you know him?
Oh God, no. He's like 3,000 years old.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, the Guess Who is also from Winnipeg. And I guess I could have done something on them because Burton Cummings was the lead singer, and he has one of those voices that, almost everybody else wanted to have. So he's generally regarded as one of these top 10 voices in rock and roll.
Okay. I think that we enjoy that as listeners too, though, to be taken on that journey and, to have it pull us in with her sultry, smooth voice and then like get into it and just be gritty and raunchy and then pull us back out and resolve.
Yeah. All while looking like a witch.
Well, was there anything else that you want to say about this song, Fred?
Just that I really like it. It's one of these songs that you can put on endless loop, and it's just, the musicianship is just such high quality that you don't get tired of it.
I agree with that. No, I could see pulling it up in my car and having it play over and over and like me forgetting to change the song and being totally fine with it.
Yeah. And you can sing along, like you can try and belt it out like her, or you can just listen. It goes all the way.
And sing about that one winged dove.
That poor little dove.
Just struggling.
Get it a prosthetic wing or something like they do for the dolphins. Poor thing.
Well, Fred, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And audience, check those show notes because they are jam-packed with good stuff for you guys.
Thank you, Tiffany. Appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Podcast land, I hope this episode was music to your ears. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? You never know what rabbit holes we'll get to go down and explore. Were you reminded of anything? Or anyone? Share what it was with me in a review. Honestly, the reviews don't do me any favors other than knowing people like you are listening to this podcast. Insert cheesy wink. However, the ratings do help, so leave me 5 stars. You know you wanna. This podcast was produced by Virtual You, supporting you in all things podcasting. To connect or check me out on social media, I know you're just gonna stalk me. But see the show notes, as always, for details. Can't wait to dive into my next guest's memories with a beat. Hit subscribe now. You don't want to miss the next episode.